Rickey Gates joined. All right. Okay, Rickey, I sent you a invitation. All right.
Fernando, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, perfect. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Totally.
Great. All right. I just see you a little bit pixelated, but I'm sure it'll sort itself out right now.
Yeah. It might not.
If not, that's fine. Cool.
Hi, Anna.
Yeah, so people are logging on, and yeah, so I haven't met you before, but you're very familiar with Aire Libre.
Yep.
Just while people are joining, I just wanted to do this really quick icebreaker because I read that you're fond of icebreakers, and one question you've asked your groups are what spirit animal are you, and I'm curious to know what your answer to that is.
Oh, man. That's what's so great about asking these questions is that I don't have to answer them, or I get to go around in the circle first before everybody else does. I don't know. Here in New Mexico, I feel like the crow is my new spirit animal here. They're kind of always moving around, a little bit mischievous, like they're up to no good, and yeah, we'll go with that one for right now.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of science to crows. They're supposed to be one of the smartest bird species, but I'm sure that's also why you chose crow. I don't personally, I don't know if I have a spirit animal myself. Although one time I saw a picture of a possum that found its way to a possum that found its way into a donut box, and they just photographed the possum just eating the donuts, and I feel like that's my spirit animal. So
nice. Anything that can find its way to the donuts is pretty clever.
Yeah. So well, we can go ahead and get this started. So I don't think a lot of people that are tuning in right now need an introduction to Rickey Gates. Just in case they do, Rickey's an endurance and conceptual runner who mixes his love of endurance running with art, such as photography and writing. And he's incorporated that into his endurance running projects, the most recent of which, well, the one that his book is based on was in 2017, cross-country run across America. And that run is documented in Rickey's new book, which is called Cross Country, a 3,700-mile run to explore unseen America, which I'm sure he has to display right there. Yeah, so Rickey, just to give some context for Rickey and Aire Libre, Rickey is a friend of Aire Libre. He co-hosted our experience in Oaxaca during the Day of the Dead celebration, and that's just a retreat where, we run through the streets of Oaxaca during their Day of the Dead celebration, which is huge to them, and also through the Sierra Norte in Oaxaca with the mountain communities there. And Rickey co-hosted that, so he's well acquainted with our project. So I just wanted to get started. Could you just talk a little bit about your book, what your motivations were for writing it, and if you had the intention of writing the book when you did your cross-country run, or if it came afterward?
Yeah, so to answer that question real quick, I did have the intention of writing this during my run. I set off for this trip on March 1st in 2017 with a small backpack and just a little bit of money. My intention was to complete the trip in 5 months, which I managed to do. It's not a record-setting time. My goal for the run was to stop and get to know people and stop where I wanted to stop and keep going where I wanted to keep going. The intention to write the book before I set off for the run certainly made it so that I was able to pay attention when it was most important to pay attention. When you're out there sleeping in the rain with blisters on your feet and you're hungry and you just want the sun to come up because that means you can start running again. It's kind of hard to stay motivated and present with the intention of wanting to share that story with other people. Just kind of allowed me to really pay attention to what was happening, what was going on in my mind and in my body at that moment, and so that I can relay that story on to others further on down the road. And then the end result, I'm very happy to say 2.5 years later, is this book that I get to share with the broader public. Some people that might be interested in doing a run like this, and then others that, for whatever reason, time, money, family commitments, are unable to. So this is both a gift to myself to be able to put all of this down and reflect back on it, but also a gift to a larger public, and hope that they can use it and share it and really get something out of it.
Great. That's amazing. I just want to let everybody know who's tuning in. If you guys have a question for Rickey while we're talking, we're going to do about 10-15 minutes conversation and then hand it over to questions and answers. So if you click the question mark button next to the comment section, you can write a question and we'll get to them in the second half. Cool. So I think one of the interesting things about this book, and it's a main theme in it, is this idea of the unseen. And in your promotional video for the book, you I don't know how big a part of this it is, but you mentioned Trump's election as one of the motivations for wanting to kind of discover these unseen people. And I can relate a little bit to that, because I also, when that happened, I also felt that, well, there's a huge part of America that I don't know, because I thought, I thought this person wasn't very electable. So that really humbled me too, and made me question, who are these people that voted? What is this other part of America that we don't know? So I wanted to ask you, after your project, do you think you have a better understanding of all these unseen people? And if so, what did you learn about them?
Yeah, so I feel like it's important to specify that I had intended on doing this trip regardless of the elections. Okay. Everything was pretty well laid out as we moved into November. I had a date set in stone and my route, and I was going to run across the country, whether it was Hillary elected president or whether it was Donald Trump elected president. Wanted to do for quite a long time. But on November 9th, when all of the information started coming in and the electoral votes, and we saw that it was quite clear that it was going a different direction than I would say a majority of Americans had anticipated. I just knew that this trip was going to be a lot more interesting than it would have if it would have been my person going into office, which was, to be totally honest with you, pretty exciting for me. I wanted it to be something totally different. Now, 2.5 years later, after 3 years after the election, 2.5 years later after my run across the country, I do feel like I gained something from that run and continue to do so to this day. What was most important to me during that run, or what I was left with that was the most impactful, is simply taking note that these political divides that we have, certainly here in the States, but I think this kind of goes for worldwide at this point, can really be amplified so much by a couple different things, and that's the media and that's politics itself. After my run, and during my run, it just kind of occurred to me and that, we have so much more in common with our fellow man than we do that's different. It's a really powerful tool to be able to take that 10% difference and make it seem like it's a 90% difference, that we're vastly different from our neighbors, and that we need to really fight to overcome that difference, as opposed to looking at that that difference and trying to figure out how to make it smaller, or how to really come together and work together. So
yeah, so it's like a pretty like a fabricated difference. You mean like maybe it's the media, the way the media portrays it, or something like that.
Totally.
Do you think, in terms of getting to know people and talking with them across the whole stretch of the continent or the country, do you feel like you understand, like you might have understood the people themselves, but do you think you left with a better understanding of America as a whole, or is it still just a really complex thing that we each have to kind of make our own little ideas about, or do you think that there is this big idea we can understand about America?
I do feel like I have a much better understanding of America. It's kind of funny how some of the places that are, I'll just pick up one little topic that has become quite amplified over the past few years. You take a topic such as immigration, and some of the people that are that have the biggest opinion about it and are most opposed to it are people that are not affected by it at all. And in certain places in rural America, and certain teeny little towns in Kansas, where if there's any immigrants at all, there's one or two of them, and they're really working quite well within the community. So with that said, I can also, having passed through those towns on foot and talked to a lot of these people in person, I can see like what they want to protect. It's this old school image of America, and any sort of outside influence feels like it's going to take that away. And so that's where the empathy part of all of this comes in, is really trying to understand why someone, why would they be attracted to the message that Donald Trump or, any number of politicians or media for that matter is trying to put out there.
When you say you saw what they want to protect, what is that? Was that like a fact? Was that taking in their landscape, or the amount of land they have, or what was it that they were specifically wanting to protect?
I think it's the familiar. People want to protect the familiar. Like, change is very, very scary. There's no doubt about it. And some people are forced to change, and a lot of those people are immigrants, or they can come from anywhere in the world or be going to anywhere in the world. And then a lot of people, they don't need to change, or they haven't had to change. And if there's this promise of don't worry, things will either stay the same or go back to the way they were. I think this is where you can kind of pick apart this phrase, "Make America Great Again." It's a sense of nostalgia. It's going back to the way things were. There's a lot that goes into that. It's the politics of nostalgia. Okay.
Do you think their surroundings, as in their landscape, do you think that has something to do with the way they feel? Did you make any connection at all about that? Maybe their attitudes or their openness or closeness compared to their landscape, whether they're in very rural areas or very urban areas. Did you reflect on that aspect at all?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it's no mystery that our divide right now is certainly much more along the lines of population density. Rural America is more likely to lean towards a right-wing agenda. Really rural anything anywhere in the world right now is going to lean more towards a right-wing agenda, and then the more urban and is going to be more liberal. And I think this also speaks into people's closeness and association with that same nostalgia. In a city environment, in a much more urban environment, you are forced on an every single day basis to adapt and to be much closer to somebody else's bubble. In a rural environment, you're not confronted with that quite as much, and the threat of losing that is what I think really drives a lot of people to vote the way they do, and to have the politics that they do, and be committed to something perhaps what I would consider to be of the past.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. Just having that amount of space in a rural community compared to somebody. I'm in Mexico City right now, so that's yeah. I could see how they would want to protect that. In terms of your running, the actual act of running across America, I'm sure it took you some time when you met these people, to kind of assess it and reflect on it, and just kind of reflect on them. And I think that's something we all do when we meet new people. We need this time to think about them, to trust them, and stuff like that. I wonder if the mental space that running across America maybe gave you some insights as to, maybe if your idea went changing as you went running. I don't know if you probably, when you were in the middle of America, you started to understand a little bit more about somebody you met at the beginning, just by having all that time to think. I
think that, it all happened pretty quick, this understanding. I would say within the first week, you're going through certain areas in South Carolina, and whether it's right or left wing politics, it doesn't take long if you're going through a place on foot to really understand and appreciate where people are coming from. I don't actually believe that it takes going across the entire country to come to these conclusions. I think that we can learn a lot, even just by going across our own county. But what's really required with all of that is just the dedication to understand, rather and just kind of suspend our own preconceived notions of what that place is and what it means and all of that. So, so I guess that's, I learned a whole lot in just the first couple of weeks of my run across the country. And then the next several months really came down to solidifying, what those beliefs were, and tearing down those notions, and really confronting other people with those same notions that they might hold to be true.
So you had conversations with other people after your run was done, kind of challenging them on those ideas?
Yeah, totally, and still to this day, and it's kind of an ongoing project for me when people criticize a certain part of the country for being backwards or believing something that they believe, or if it's someone criticizing someone from the other side of town. I'm living in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I'm working on this project that I came up with following my run across the country, called Every Single Street, which is to run all of the streets in a certain area. I started off doing it in San Francisco and did a little bit in Mexico City this past winter, and now I'm doing it here in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And the project is really to tear down these bubbles, and at least make an effort towards understanding our neighbors and where they're coming from and why they might vote the way they do. Because I don't know, I'd love to not see Donald Trump in office anymore, but yelling at people that believe he's right isn't going to do anything. What is going to do something, or at least a first step, is to try and understand why somebody would prefer that he stay in office. And that's a first step, and it's a huge first step. Because if you can't understand that, then there's really no conversation. Then we're just yelling at each other. It's just a massive echoes into the void, and nothing actually gets done.
Yeah, very interesting. And just my last little question. Do you think, probably haven't thought about this, but do you think this this practice of questioning people and trying to get people to understand. Do you see that this could lead you into politics in the future?
I'm so enraged by politics right now that the thought of going into politics, I don't even allow myself that thought. So I don't know. Ask me in 10 years.
All right, sounds good. All right, so well, thank you very much, and I have a couple of questions from a bunch of people. So let me just get those out. So
hi, Alice. I see a couple people I know there.
Oh, great. So our first question is from Oh Hey Rick, and he's asking, on your cross-country trek, what did you do or say to yourself each morning to get set?
That's a good question. A lot of people think that it, for me at any rate, and I'd be curious to ask other cross-country runners about this, that it would require kind of like an immense amount of day-to-day motivation. But for me in particular, like it really required nothing from the moment I set off from South Carolina, for no other reason than I had a goal, and like I was going to do whatever it took to get to the other side of the country. Now, after I finished the run, you know, how do you motivate yourself to tackle, you know, 50 or different goals on a given day, which is more like our normal life? That's a different story, and kind of coming up with to-do lists and all of that, you know, that's quite a bit different. Yeah. But in terms of waking up in the middle of Kansas, in order to get myself motivated to keep going, it's like there's only one goal during that entire trip, and that's to get to Ocean Beach. And if I'm not moving in a westerly direction, then you know, it's I'm not achieving that goal. So yeah. So luckily, it was for me anyway. Easiest goal I've ever really had to set my mind to.
Awesome. So our next question is, would you plan to do any undocumented long adventure in the future? Undocumented.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is that this is my job. This is how I make a living. I'm a professional athlete. I do these types of adventures in large part to motivate myself and to keep myself entertained, but also to help get other people out there and to tell my story. But I am always sort of looking at adventures that I can do that are just for me, and more I would say that those adventures are this isn't exactly just for me, but are for me and my wife, and you know, because those are our moments, and I think it's really important to live a lot of those moments unrecorded and out there on our own.
Great, awesome. Next question is, oh man, we have a lot of questions. Okay, so somebody's asking, watching from Europe, the U.S. seems more divided than ever. How can running unite the U.S.?
That's a great question, and this is something that I would argue, you know, the United States seems to have this large political divide right now. But I would argue that it's something that's going on worldwide right now. We're seeing it in Brazil. We're seeing it in Israel. We're seeing it in Britain. We're seeing it all over the world. In the United States, we have everything kind of plays out a bit differently. Our sense of freedom, it can be like in a media sense, and it can be on a political sense, and so I feel that this sense of divide that is being projected worldwide gets amplified in the United States based on our both our politics, our media, our constitution, on a lot of different things. so going back to the question, what can running do to help this out? And like, I just kind of go back to like the number one way that we're able to break down barriers and pop bubbles is to get out there on foot and just talk to people with no agenda other than to try to get to understand people. And maybe like 99 times out of 100, I'm not going to change anybody's mind. And generally, I don't even try to. It's not that important to me. What's most important to me is to try and understand their position. And I think that like simply making that effort to understand someone else's position is the first step towards them becoming remotely interested in understanding my position. So that's where the conversation begins. That's my answer to that, is that I'm not going to solve all of the world's problems by running around and taking pictures and picking up trash, but it's a first step, and that's what I'm going for.
Great. I guess to hinge on that question, we have another question that says, what's the difference to you, besides the obvious, between exploring a territory in different vehicles? I guess that means, vehicles isn't maybe a car or a bike or even running,
Totally. And yeah, because I'm, I've got my pickup truck out here that gets me deep into the woods where I'm in my VW bus right now, where my bus can't get me. And then out there, I've got my motorcycle, and that's a different form of transportation. And then I've got my mountain bike out there, and then my feet right here. So I'm certainly familiar with all the different types of transportation. All of them are wonderful. I love each of these things that allows me to do something different. What I find to be the most impactful, though, is hands down being out there on foot. You're the least threatening. You're moving the slowest out of all of those forms of transportation, which makes it more possible to stop and talk to people. And people want to talk to you. It's, when even here in Santa Fe, where I'm doing my every single street project, people know that I'm going down a street that is not my street. And it provides them with some sort of context. At the very least, I'm not that threatening to them. I'm just on foot.
Great. And there's another question related to that, to meeting people. Do you think that people, your book basically documents, it's a book of photography and profiles of people you met and stories about them and, stories they told you or just your interactions with them. Do you think that it's, part of the reason they might have been as open to you was because you had a camera or a crew set or maybe just the idea of you're doing a project? Like, for example, somebody without a project or a goal, just trying to approach people, I think might be a little bit difficult. Would you say the same thing? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I experienced both sides of that when, first when I was running across the country, and then when I was almost immediately after running all the streets in San Francisco. When I was running across the country, it was quite simple. I kind of considered it my costume. This image of myself. I'm trying to find. Here we go. When this guy right there walks into a gas station, it's very clear that I'm doing something. I'm not just there to get gas, or I'm not just there to grab a pack of cigarettes. It's clear I'm wearing this costume that says I've got a story. I'm not threatening. I've got a story. And people saw that when I was going across the country. They really wanted to see what was going on, to talk to me about it.
Oh, great.
When I was doing the streets of San Francisco, all of that went away. Like I look like that going into a convenience store in San Francisco, and I'm just another crazy guy. And there's no doubt about it when you're in the middle of Kansas and you're looking the way that I was, it breaks down barriers immediately. People want to talk to you, and it's wonderful. I love taking advantage of that. how to go about doing that when you're in a different setting or situation, a normal day-to-day sort of thing.
Yeah.
That's where it gets a little bit more challenging, and I think that it just requires being bold. Saying hi to complete strangers. The worst thing that is going to happen by saying hi to a complete stranger, at least for someone like us, running down the street, is that they're not going to say hi back to you. And that can be pretty painful at times, but and I think that's oftentimes the reason why we don't say hi to strangers, is that it's insulting when someone doesn't say hi back to you.
Yeah.
Now, of course, I'm saying all of this, and we're taught as children to not speak to strangers and not to say hi to strangers, but I do think that there's, that's an important message to give a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old, but it's a message that needs to be reassessed when we go into adulthood and we start living in our different bubbles.
Great, awesome. Well, that was really cool. We're almost toward the end of our conversation, and I've had a lot of questions about people that are curious about your next projects, such as to pair a couple questions in the same one. Where is your next run bus run destination, and what's your next every street destination?
So I'll start with the every single street one. I'm still here in Santa Fe. I live here now, and for the foreseeable future. My wife has a great job here. She's an artist and a fabricator and doing some wonderful things with an art collective called Meow Wolf. So I'm 250 miles, I would say, into this 700 or 800 mile project of running all the streets in Santa Fe. I'm not going about it like I was in San Francisco, which is to say, I'm taking my time here in Santa Fe and kind of doing it a bit more casually and going as it may. So that's going to take me, I don't know, I might not finish till the fall or even winter, which is also fine by me. It's I'm new to this town, and I'm excited to keep exploring it and seeing what it has in store. Yeah. As for the next bus run bus, the next one is scheduled for August 1st to the 9th in Alaska. This is one that I've been putting together with the same bus company, Green Tortoise, since middle of last fall. We have almost a full trip right now in terms of guests. What's uncertain right now is honestly like if we're going to be allowed to hold it. And the guests are all aware of this at this point. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. We're all just kind of living this pandemic out in hour to hour, day to day information and media sort of feeding us all sorts of different things. So I'm just really hoping that I can that everybody in the planet, our cultures, our economy is going to start recovering from this, and that we'll be able to hold our bus trip up in Alaska and at the beginning of August. If it doesn't happen this summer, it's for certain going to happen next year. It's a format that, as many saw with Solomon's great video Max Romy put together, it's a format that I really love. It's conducive to bringing together a whole bunch of like-minded and crazy individuals and going out to the most amazing places that you can access by road, and then getting out on foot and taking it from there. So fingers crossed, August 1st up in Alaska is the next one.
Great. And well, just to finish this off, I just wanted to bring it back to our, everybody's probably watching hopefully at home from some isolated area. And just one of the last questions I saw on there was, what's your approach to running during this pandemic?
Yeah, and this is something that I think needs to be looked at based on where we are. Every single county, state, country, everybody's dealing with this in their own different ways. Santa Fe, we're still allowed to get outside and move around. The trails are still open here, so I've been taking advantage of that as best I can. I've been getting out on the trails. I've been working on my Every Single Street project. I've been getting out on my bike. What's most important, I think, right now for us as runners and people getting out there is to keep in mind that we're stewards of the trail, and it's important to smile and say hi to people out there. Be as welcoming as possible. It's we're all having to make adjustments in our lives. Trail runners, we're accustomed to having these trails to ourselves. We're accustomed to getting out there and sweating a little bit. We just have to keep in mind that we're all in this together, and it's not the most important thing right now to be working on your marathon PR. What's most important is looking at our fellow neighbors and smiling and making sure that our neighbors are doing okay and that we're doing okay.
Yeah, definitely. A little bit of kindness can definitely go a long way right now. Well, Rickey, thank you very much for taking the time to have this conversation, and we all look forward to your new book. I don't know if you can tell us if it's out already or where it's going to be out.
Yeah, the book is out already. It came out last week, I believe on Tuesday was the official release date. And it can be found on Amazon.com or Chronicle Books, really any of the online platforms. I'm highly encouraging anybody that is interested in getting the book, if they haven't already, try calling your local bookstore. Small businesses around the country and around the world are going to suffer immensely from this entire pandemic, and I think it's important to try and shop local if we can. That's most important to me. That's more important than getting the book itself. So if you can do that, please do. And thank you, Fernando, for this conversation, and to Aire Libre and Dan and Mao for putting this all together. And I can see a few friends there that have been popping up, MA and everybody else. So I thank you, and I just urge people to be safe and to look after one another.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Rickey. You be safe too, and we look forward to your projects and your book. Thanks.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.